Re- So today's lecture is about the highlights of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's keynote address at the UN High-Level Dialogue on Desertification, Land Degradation and Drought. So the important highlight includes number one, the Prime Minister gave a call to all nations to work together for reducing pressure on land and its resources, right? So प्रधानमंत्री ने सभी राष्ट्रों के जो लीडर्स थे उनको सुजेशन दी है, उनको इनवाइट किया है कि हम सब मिल के लैंड डिग्रेडेशन, डेजर्टिफिकेशन एंड ड्राउट की प्रॉब्लम को रोकने के लिए हम वर्क करें. India's Prime Minister repeated India's commitments. One is to achieve land degradation neutrality by 2030. So this is a very important fact from the preliminary point of view that the goal of India is to achieve land degradation neutrality by 2030, right? And for the mains examination, the important question is, what do you mean by the land degradation neutrality, right? What is the strategy that has been adopted by the government of India to achieve land degradation neutrality, right? So this can be the question from the mains point of view. Okay, so I have told you that land degradation neutrality is a stage where the restored land in a unit of time, say 1 year, equals to the land degraded during that time, right? So that is the land degradation neutrality, right? Second is to restore 26 million hectares of degraded land by 2030, right? So India has a plan to restore uh, degraded land equivalent to 26 million hectares by the year 2030, right? This is again an important fact from the preliminary point of view, right? And third important point is to achieve an additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, right? So here, let us define the carbon sink first. That what do we mean by the carbon sink, right? Carbon sink means any system, right, that absorbs carbon dioxide from the environment, from the atmosphere, right? From the atmosphere, that is known as a carbon sink, right? So the carbon sink may be a forest, right? It may be a forest, right? Or the carbon sink may be an ocean body. It may be an ocean, right? Or it may be something else, right? कुछ और भी हो सकता है. It may be something else. So this is what we mean by the this right carbon sink, right? So I think the meaning of the carbon sink is very easy, right? It is easy to remember also, right? So these are the three you can say commitments of India. Okay, so this is the third commitment of India. So it's okay. So next thing, the next, I'm moving on to the next slide. I think you must have noted this slide. So the next slide is that, right? The next point is that we can say the PM brought forth the steps. The Prime Minister brought forth the steps taken by India, brought forth the steps taken by India to address the problem of land degradation, right? To address the problem of land degradation. Okay, so this is the point here. Okay, so now what are the various steps that India has taken to address the problem of land degradation. So one of the steps is that India played a leading role, right? India played a leading role in in highlighting highlighting land degradation issues at international forums, right? Issues at international forums. So this is the one point, right? International forums. So, and the second important point is that, right, hosted, India hosted Conference of Parties 14 of UNCCD in 2019 at Delhi, right? So UNCCD की जो 14th कॉन्फ्रेंस थी वो दिल्ली में हुई थी, right? Delhi, okay, and the consequence of right, the consequence of that conference is known as a Delhi Declaration, right? Known as Delhi Declaration. उसको हम Delhi Declaration बोलते हैं, right? So that is known as the Delhi Declaration. Okay, so that is there, right? So Delhi Declaration was for what, right? Important points in this we will discuss now, right? So the first point is that the Delhi Declaration was for Delhi Declaration was for, we can say, better access, for better access and stewardship. Stewardship means supervision, right? Stewardship over land, and emphasized gender sensitive and emphasize, right, gender, we can say, sensitive, gender sensitive transformation projects, right? Gender sensitive transformation project, right? So one important point is that the Delhi Declaration, right, you can say one point is that the Delhi Declaration was for better access and supervision over land, right? Accessibility of the land should be improved and the supervision over the land should be improved. And along with this, it emphasized the gender sensitive transformation projects. Gender sensitive means whatever the land transformation projects are taking place or undergoing or planned, right? So those land transformation projects should not be aimed at giving benefit to one particular gender. Those should not support and tilt towards one particular gender, right? So that is this point, right? So one point is that, and the second point which was highlighted there was that, right, in India, 3 million, right, 3 million hectares of forest cover, right, forest cover have been, we can say, added, right, within the previous 10 years, and the total area under forest in the country, total area under forest in the country has increased to about 25 25%, increase to about 25%, right? So this is about the area, right? So total area has been increased to about this much, right? Has been increased to about 25%. So this is again an important point, right? Akshay, I will show you the first slide. Please wait, right? So this is the second point I can say here, right? So this is the second point which is important here, right? So you should remember that 3 million hectares of forest covers have been added in the last 3 years, last 10 years, and the forest cover in the country has increased to 25% approximately of the total geographical area of the country, right? And the next point, which was, you can say, the next point which was discussed here was that a center of excellence, right? A center of excellence, right? A center of excellence is being set up, right? Is being set up in India to promote, right? Set up in India to promote scientific approach, scientific approach, right? Scientific approach towards land degradation issues, right? Towards land degradation issues, right? So please remember this, that we can say, right? These are the various highlights of the Prime Minister's keynote address, right? There we can say at that UN high level dialogue, right, on desertification, land degradation, and we can say drought, right? So these are the various highlights of the address of the PM, right? Address of the Prime Minister, right? So this is important because such things can be asked to you in your examination, right? So I am again repeating this. The PM, we will repeat it later on. Let me take one more point here, right? And one more point here was that, right, in his keynote address, the Prime Minister of India, right, gave an example of that is the Bani region, right? Bani region of Run of Kutch, right? Bani region of Run of Kutch, right? So you can mention it as a case study also, and you can take it as an example also. But this question may be asked in the examination also, that where is the Bani region located, right? So that is located in Gujarat. Okay. So Bani region of Run of Kutch, he has taken the example of this, right? So in that region, right, in that region, the efforts were taken, the efforts were done to reclaim degraded land, right? To reclaim degraded land, right? By developing grassland, okay? By developing grassland, right? Which, according to the Prime Minister, which help in achieving land degradation neutrality, right? Achieving land degradation neutrality, right? So that is an important point, right? In achieving land degradation neutrality. And further, it was said that the restoration of land in Bani region, right? Further, it was said that the restoration of land in that region, right? Land there, okay? The restoration of land there has started a, right, has started a virtuous cycle of right, virtuous cycle of we can say what I'm mentioning the point here, right? Number one is good soil health, right? virtuous cycle of गुड सॉइल हेल्थ। सबसे पहली बात ये कि इससे सॉइल हेल्थ में इम्प्रूवमेंट हुई जब उन्होंने ये एफर्ट की, इस चीज़ की, राइट। वन इज दैट एंड सेकंड इज द increased productivity, right? So due to the good soil health, the productivity has been increased there in that region, right? Increased productivity is there. Okay, and now the third point here, which is important again, right? Increased productivity. And the third point is food security, right? It led to food security also. Okay, food security, right? And the fourth point is that is, we can say, the employment or improved livelihood, we can say, right? So improved livelihood, so इससे लोगों का जो livelihood है, that has also improved, right? Improved livelihood. Okay, so these are the four important points, right? So Bani region of Kutch, right? So where the government has made efforts to restore or to reclaim the degraded land, right? How? By developing the grasslands over the degraded land, and that has resulted into good soil health, increased productivity, food security, and improved livelihood as well. Okay, so now let me give a brief review of this to all of you, right? So so far I have discussed about the highlights of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's keynote address at the UN high-level dialogue on desertification, land degradation, and drought, right? The important points in the highlight were, one is the PM gave a call to all nations to work together for reducing pressure on land and its resources, because if there is more pressure on land and the land resources, so obviously that will lead to the deterioration of the land quality, right? And the deterioration of land quality is the land degradation basically, right? So in this, the Prime Minister emphasized on the joint action by the, you can say, global leaders, right? So second, India's PM repeated India's commitment to, what are our commitments? To achieve land degradation neutrality by 2030. Land degradation neutrality is, we can say, achieved when the amount of land degraded per unit of time, means in 1 year, is equal to the land reclaimed or restored in the same period, right? So that is known as the land degradation neutrality. So the India's aim is to achieve land degradation neutrality by 2030. Second, the aim of India is to restore 26 million hectare of degraded land by 2030. Means जो हमारी खराब भूमि है, राइट, उसमें से 26 मिलियन हेक्टेयर भूमि को हमने 2030 तक उसमें इम्प्रूवमेंट करनी है, उसको हमने रिस्टोर करना है. And third is to achieve an additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, right? So carbon sink means, right, any system that absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, that is known as the carbon sink. Forest, ocean, these are the carbon sinks. Okay, so these were the points, and the next points were there, which were in the keynote address of the Prime Minister. Those were the Prime Minister brought forth the steps taken by India to address the problem of land degradation. पहली बात हमने क्या की कि हमने जो एक लीडिंग रोल प्ले किया, राइट, किस चीज़ में? लैंड डिग्रेडेशन के इशू को वर्ल्ड के सामने हाईलाइट करने में. दूसरा, हमने UNCCD, यूनाइटेड नेशंस कॉन्फ्रेंस टू कम्बैट डेजर्टिफिकेशन, राइट, सो उस उसकी जो 14th मीटिंग थी, उस बॉडी की कॉन्फ्रेंस थी, कॉन्फ्रेंस ऑफ पार्टीज, उसको हमने होस्ट किया और वहाँ हमने दिल्ली डिक्लेरेशन की, राइट। सो दिल्ली डिक्लेरेशन वाज फॉर better access and stewardship over land and emphasized gender sensitive transformation projects, right. सो जो हमारी दिल्ली डिक्लेरेशन थी, राइट, उसमें क्या था कि लैंड तक पहुंच सभी की हो, राइट। सो बेटर एक्सेस टू लैंड मीन्स लैंड तक पहुंच इजी होनी चाहिए, and stewardship. Stewardship means supervision over the land, right? That should be improved, and it emphasized the gender sensitive transformation project. So means जो भी ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन प्रोजेक्ट्स, लैंड को ट्रांसफॉर्म करने के जो भी हम प्रोजेक्ट्स बना रहे हैं, राइट, लैंड डिग्रेडेशन में, लैंड डिग्रेडेशन रिस्टोरेशन में, तो वो जेंडर सेंसिटिव होने चाहिए। मीन्स उसका बेनिफिट जो है बोथ जेंडर्स को मिलना चाहिए, right. Next, in India, 3 billion tons of forest cover have been added within the previous 10 years, and the total area under forest is in the country has increased to about 25%, right. वो कहते हैं कि हमने पिछले 10 years में 3 million hectares forest cover हमने ऐड किया है, राइट। एंड जिसकी वजह से इंडिया का जो टोटल फॉरेस्ट कवर है वो 25% पे चला गया है। भले हमारा जो टारगेट है वो ये है कि एटलीस्ट 1/3 ऑफ द टोटल जोग्राफिकल एरिया ऑफ द कंट्री शुड बी अंडर द फॉरेस्ट्स, राइट। उससे हम अभी बहुत पीछे हैं। Third is Center of Excellence is being set up in India to promote scientific approach towards land degradation issues, right? So land degradation issues की तरफ एक scientific approach बनाने के लिए भारत सरकार एक Center of Excellence भी start करने जा रही है, right? And Bani region of Run of Kutch was specially mentioned in the Prime Minister's keynote address, right? So that region is in that Gujarat state, right? And that was a region with the degraded land, and there the degraded land has been, you can say, restored or reclaimed by the government, right, by developing the grasslands on that land, right. And due to that, soil health has improved, productivity has increased, food security has improved, and livelihood of the people has improved there in that region, right. So that was the main point, right. So now the next important point in our today's discussion, that is the land degradation. क्योंकि आपने की नोट एड्रेस के अंदर हमारे प्रधानमंत्री ने लैंड डिग्रेडेशन को बहुत हाईलाइट किया है। सो दिस इज एन इम्पॉर्टेंट टॉपिक of your environment, and we can say ecology also, and this is a in the current, this is very important issue also, right. So land degradation, because land degradation has multiple effects, right. And moreover, we can say on one hand, right, on one hand, there is the problem of, we can say, hunger, right, in the world, right. So the threat of food insecurity is prevailing, right, at present in the world. And on the, we can say, other hand, right, so dry land landscapes cover about 40% of the total geographical area of the world, right. So beta, this is an important, you can see statistics here, right, that dry land landscapes, right, landscapes cover about 40% of total land area of the world, right, total land area of the world, right. So beta, this figure is very much important. It's quite a big figure, quite a, you can say, large figure, right. So in the context that, right, so millions and billions of people, right, are living under the threat of the food insecurity today, right. And at the same time, 40% of our land, right, is the dry land, right. So where the productivity is not at the optimum level, obviously, right. So that is why this issue of land degradation is a very, very much important issue, right? Uh, in this time, right? And therefore, I am going to discuss this topic from the environment subject today. Okay. So first of all, let us define the term land degradation, what we mean by the land degradation, right? So we can say that land degradation is a condition, right? So land degradation, what is that? Is a condition, is a condition, right? Where the where the soil loses its productivity permanently or temporarily, right? Permanently or temporarily, okay, or temporarily. So that is known as the, you can say, uh, land degradation, right? So बहुत सीधी सी बात है कि the relation of land degradation is, we can say, only and only with the loss of productivity of the land, right, beta? So let's suppose this is a piece of land, right? And we can say over the period, right, this piece of land has lost its productivity, right? So this piece of land has lost its productivity, piece of land has lost its productivity, right? So इसकी जो productivity है उसका loss हो गया है, right? So that is why we will say that this land has been degraded, right? Or this land is degrading, right? So this land is degraded. We will say like that, right? So now, beta, you uh, from this definition, right? You may sense that, right? So land degradation means fall in productivity of the land, right? So fall in productivity कब हो सकती है? जब लैंड में न्यूट्रिएंट्स ना हो, जब लैंड में मॉइस्चर ना हो, राइट? ओके, जब जो लैंड का जो, यू कैन से, जो भी उसकी टोपोग्राफी है, राइट, वो ऐसी हो कि दैट इज नॉट फिट फॉर द कल्टीवेशन, वो भी हो सकता है, राइट? और जब वहाँ पर ड्राइनेस हो जाती है, डेजर्ट बन जाते हैं, तो भी हो सकता है. सो नाउ बेटा, प्लीज रिमेंबर इट दैट land degradation and desertification are two different terms, right? So desertification is a part of the land degradation, right? So one of the types of land degradation is desertification. Okay, Amrit, is it clear now beta? ठीक है. सो डेजर्टिफिकेशन लैंड डिग्रेडेशन का एक पार्ट है. डेजर्टिफिकेशन एंड लैंड डिग्रेडेशन दोनों सिमिलर नहीं है. ओके. Okay, so now beta, we are discussing about the land degradation, that what we mean by the land degradation, right? So this is the point here, right? So now beta, according to the,
सर
right?
इवन सर फ्लड से भी हो सकता है लैंड डिग्रेडेशन तो सर बहुत ज्यादा.
Yes beta, we will come on that point, right? So UNEP means according to the United Nations Environment Program, right? According to the United Nations Environment Program, okay, Environment Program, right? UNEP. So according to that, we can say that land degradation includes, right? So United Nations Environment Program tells that land degradation includes, कि land degradation में क्या क्या होता है, right? You can say number one, that is the soil erosion, right? इसमें ये भी होता है soil erosion by water or wind, right? So one is that, okay, and the second is the that is the deterioration, right? Deterioration of a physical, chemical, right? Chemical and biological, right? Physical, chemical and biological properties of land, right? Properties of land, right? Comma, we can say water logging, right? Water logging, okay? Water logging, comma, right? You can say then building up of toxicity, building up of toxicity, right? So zeharilapan बढ़ जाना, building up of toxicity, particularly salts in soil, right? Particularly salts in soil, right? So this is the you can say explanation of the land degradation by the United Nations Environment Program. Okay, so I think so far the meaning of the land degradation is clear to you, and so far you must be clear about the we can say the difference between the desertification and the land degradation as well. Okay, as well. So now I am moving to the next slide, right? So if anybody has any doubt, you can raise the question, please, right? So the next slide about the land degradation. We are still discussing about the land degradation. Where land degradation, we can say, is a global problem today, right? It is a global problem today. It is not the problem of one particular country or a problem of the developed world or developing world only, right? So it occurs both in developed as well as the developing world, right? So everywhere it is there, right? Today, right? So it is happening at an we can say alarming stage, right? At an alarming pace we can say, right? बहुत तेजी से बढ़ रहा है जो land degradation है, right? So it is contributing to dramatic decline. It is contributing to dramatic decline in, right? The productivity in the productivity of land, right? Productivity of land, right? So this is an important point again, right? So in the productivity of land. So that means land degradation is a very serious problem, right? Particularly when the pace of land degradation is very fast, right? So that is why it has become a very serious problem, right? And globally, right, 25% of the land has been degraded, right? 25% of the land has been degraded globally, right? So this is the important thing, right? So we have discussed about the land degradation. I hope the process, the definition is clear to you, right? There may be controversy on this, that whether land degradation is a process or land degradation is the consequence, right? So there may be controversy on that. So we need not to indulge in that controversy, right? We need to keep it in mind that land degradation is a condition which happens when the fertility or the productivity of the land, right, is lost, right, comes down, is lost, right, due to the man-made factors or due to the natural factors, right? Anyway, it can be there, right? So as UNEP has said that one is that land degradation includes number one, soil erosion, right, by the action of wind or water. One is that, and second is the deterioration of the physical, chemical, or biological properties of the land, right? And building up of the toxicity in the land, right? Toxicity means particularly increase in the concentration of the salts in the land, right? So then we say that the land has been degraded, right? So Desertification is one part of the land degradation. That is why desertification and land degradation are two different terms, right? So, right, deserts are degraded lands, but all degraded lands are not deserts, right? So please bear this in mind. Okay, so that is the point, right? So now the next important point which we will discuss here now, that is the consequences of land degradation, right? Consequences of land degradation, right? So this is a very important points which we will discuss now beyond this part of the lecture, right? So consequences of land डिग्रेडेशन, राइट? सो बेटा इसके बहुत सारे consequences हैं लैंड डिग्रेडेशन के, ओके? बहुत सारे consequences हैं. द आई एम डिस्कसिंग, आशिका नोट इट बेटा. सो बहुत सारे consequences हैं लैंड डिग्रेडेशन के. द फर्स्ट consequence of land degradation, that is we can say effect on food security, right? Effect on food security, that is one of the consequences of the land degradation, right? How effect on food security? Because land degradation, right, leads to less productivity or low productivity, right? Low productivity, okay? Productivity, yes. And the low productivity, right, causes food security, right? Causes food insecurity, right? Or food scarcity. So that is why the first important point which is here, right? So that is the land degradation leads to low product, affects the food security as well, right? So this is the one point, right? And the second important point, which is here, that is land degradation contributes to climate change, right? Land degradation contributes to climate change, right? So now this point is again very much important, that how land degradation contributes to climate change, right? So one point here, that how land degradation contributes to climate change, right? So one point which I am going to discuss here, that is the land degradation means, right? Let me write it otherwise. So land degradation means, right, loss of vegetation, right? Loss of vegetation or forest. क्योंकि जब लैंड डिग्रेड होगी तो उसकी प्रोडक्टिविटी कम होगी, वेजिटेशन का लॉस होगा, फॉरेस्ट लॉस होगा, राइट? एंड डेन्यूडेशन ऑफ लैंड, राइट? सो लैंड का डेन्यूडेशन होगा, मींस लैंड अनकवर हो जाएगी, राइट? सरफेस से जो पहले उसको वेजिटेशन कवर करके रखती है, जब लैंड डिग्रेडेशन होगी तो लैंड की डेन्यूडेशन हो जाएगी, उसका वेजिटेशन कवर लॉस हो जाएगा, right? Lost हो जाएगा. So that is the point here, right? So then what will happen, right? So it will lead to 2-3 important consequences, right? Notable consequences. So one consequences which is there, right? Loss of, we can say that increase in or more moisture loss. First thing मैं यही लिखता हूँ, more moisture loss, right? More moisture loss, this is an important point here. So आप पूछोगे कि moisture loss कैसे होगा, right? Moisture loss इस करके होगा कि due to the, right, due to the uncovered surface of the land, right? Due to the uncovered surface of land, right? Vegetation cover lost हो जाएगा, So that is why sun rays directly आकर के denuded land के ऊपर आएंगी. So when the sun rays will fall on the denuded land, so evaporation rate will be higher, right? So the moisture from the soil will be taken away by the evaporation, right? So that is one important point here. Okay, so the next thing which will be there, right? The next thing which will be there, that is we can say the loss of right, loss of vegetation, right? जो loss of vegetation है, loss of vegetation की वजह से there will be two consequences again, right? So one consequence due to the loss of vegetation, that is the low rainfall, right? Low rainfall. Why low rainfall? Because the loss of water through the transpiration, right, will not be there, right? Loss of water through transpiration will be less, right? Through transpiration will be less. Through transpiration will be less, right? And if the loss of water through transpiration is less, then what will happen better? There will be, right, uh, there will be less amount of moisture or water vapor, right? Less amount of water vapor in atmosphere, right? So अगर atmosphere में water vapor कम है तो relative humidity low रहेगी. अगर relative humidity low रहेगी तो rainfall अकर नहीं होगा, right? तो rainfall अकर नहीं होगा. Yes, yes बेटा, वो दोनों factors को मैं different करके ले रहा हूँ. ये भी एक factor है, ये भी एक factor है, right? अगर दोनों को आप कंबाइन करके देखोगे तो उसका रिजल्ट कुछ और होगा, राइट? सो मैं आपको फैक्टर्स एक्सप्लेन कर रहा हूँ यहाँ पर, राइट? सो एंड देन द नेक्स्ट इज लॉट ऑफ वेजिटेशन मीन्स, सॉरी, लॉस ऑफ वेजिटेशन मीन्स लॉस ऑफ कार्बन स्टॉक, राइट? लॉस ऑफ कार्बन स्टॉक. व्हाई? बिकॉज the trees are considered as the carbon sinks, right? So वो कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड को स्टोर करते हैं, राइट? सो लॉस ऑफ कार्बन स्टॉक, सो दैट इज द पॉइंट देयर. ओके, सो दिस इज द पॉइंट हियर, राइट? सो लॉस ऑफ कार्बन स्टॉक, and due to the loss of carbon stock, what will happen? Carbon dioxide concentration in atmosphere will increase, right? So concentration in air will increase, right? In air will increase, right? So if the concentration of carbon dioxide in air increases, right, so then what will happen, right? So you can say a greenhouse effect, right? Greenhouse effect, right? So that will cause more greenhouse effect, right? So if the greenhouse effect is more, so that will lead to high temperature, global warming, right? High temperature, so that will lead to global warming, and the consequences of the global warming we will have to face in that case, right? Global warming. So this is the second thing which is there, right? And the next point is that, right? The next point is that the third point is that, right, degraded lands, right? Degraded lands release, degraded lands, right, release soil carbon, right? Release soil carbon and nitrous oxide, and nitrous oxide इन एटमॉस्फेयर, ये एटमॉस्फेयर में इसको रिलीज करेंगी, राइट? एंड बोथ आर द ग्रीन हाउस गैसेस, सो द रिस्क ऑफ increased global warming is there, right? So both are greenhouse gases, right? Both are greenhouse gases. So beta, this is the second effect we can say that right? So please bear this in mind, right? That how, that what is the association or what is the relationship between the land degradation and the climate change, right? So beta, please try to write 100 words, right, by tomorrow on this, right, the relationship between the land degradation and climate change. Okay, will you write it? eh? Write it in a very because 100 words हैं, right? Better if you will type those 100 words, right, and send those me via WhatsApp, right? So that will be better, I think, right? If you do that, so that I may see, right? And now, beta, please keep it in mind that the question asked is right. What is the relationship between the land degradation and the climate change, right? So, beta, you have to take it from the two sides. One is the how land degradation affects climate change, and second, how climate change affects land degradation. Because the question is not that, right, how does land degradation contribute to climate change? It is not that question. The question is that, right, what is the relationship between the land degradation and the climate change? जी लैंड डिग्रेडेशन एंड क्लाइमेट चेंज के बीच में यदि हमने रिलेशनशिप पूछा है तो दैट मीन्स हमें इसको दोनों साइड्स से लेना पड़ेगा कि लैंड डिग्रेडेशन, राइट, राइट, हाउ affects the climate change, and similarly how does climate change affect the land degradation, right? So एक बार हमें जो हमें डिटरमाइनिंग फैक्टर है जो लैंड डिग्रेडेशन लेना पड़ेगा, और दूसरी बार हमें जो भी डिटरमिनिंग फैक्टर है वो हमें क्लाइमेट चेंज को लेना पड़ेगा, राइट? सो अकॉर्डिंगली आपको इसको सॉल्व करना है, इसका आंसर लिखना है, 100 वर्ड्स में लिखने की कोशिश करना है। ओके, so I hope you will do it, right? Do it, right? And beta इतनी सी जो डिस्कशन अभी तक जो हमने की है, right? So in this discussion, what is important? One is the you can say land degradation contributes to climate change. This is very important part of the discussion here, right? And from this part you can say, right, a question in the preliminary can be asked, right? Scale land degradation contribute to climate change, right, by number 1 2 3 ऐसा लिख सकते हैं कि कैसे climate change में contribute करती है land degradation, नीचे 1 2 3 लिख सकते हैं। One is that thing, right? And the second thing is that right, second point which is important here, that is the degraded lands release soil carbon and nitrous oxide, which contributes more into the global warming, right? So please bear these points in mind, right? So these are the easy, you can say things, right? But technical things, okay? So the we can say third effect of the land degradation, right? The third consequence of the land degradation, that is, we can say environmental hazards, right? Environmental hazards, right? So this is the third important point, right? So as far as the environmental hazards are concerned, right? So number one, we can say, number one is that degraded lands are more prone to soil erosion, right? More prone to soil erosion, right? Degraded lands पे vegetation cover कम होगा, अगर vegetation cover कम है तो soil का erosion ज़्यादा होगा. One point is that, right? And the second is you can say, right? So degraded lands contribute to destruction of habitats of various species, right? Various species. So बहुत सारे species के जो habitats हैं, राइट, वो अगर वेजिटेशन है, डेजर्ट है, वहाँ पर रहते हैं, सो जब लैंड डिग्रेड हो जाएगी तो फिर उनके जो हैबिटेट्स हैं उनका लॉस होगा, और हैबिटेट लॉस होने की वजह से फिर बायोडाइवर्सिटी का लॉस होगा, राइट? वहाँ पर जो भी स्पीसीज हैं वो नहीं रहेंगे, उनको कहीं माइग्रेट करना पड़ेगा जहाँ वो एक्सटिंक्ट हो जाएंगे, राइट? सो द नेक्स्ट पॉइंट इज दैट इज द लॉस ऑफ सॉइल मॉइस्चर, राइट? सो ये भी एक एनवायरमेंटल हैजर्ड है, राइट? सॉइल मॉइस्चर, ड्राइनेस फैलना, एरिडिटी का बढ़ना, right? So that is also the point, right? And the next important point is that, right, that is we can say the excessive, right, excessive nutrients run off, right, excessive nutrients, right, nutrients runoff, right, runoff into the water bodies, into the water bodies, right? Because there is nothing to check the runoff of the nutrients to the water bodies, right? So if there will be the excessive nutrients runoff into the water bodies, right? So that will pollute, pollute or lower the quality, right? Lower the quality of life in water bodies, right? Quality of life in water bodies, right? And moreover, right, that will change the distribution of the plant species and the animal species, right? Population of the plant and animal species in those water bodies, right? So that is the like eutrophication hoti hai, राइट, अल्गल ब्लूम्स होते हैं, तो बायोलॉजिकल ऑक्सीजन डिमांड बढ़ जाती है, सो ऐसी प्रॉब्लम्स आती हैं, राइट. ओके, सो द नेक्स्ट, राइट, नेक्स्ट वी कैन से द एनवायरमेंटल हैजर्ड, वी कैन से that is the loss of, right, that is the loss of forests, right, that is another environmental hazard, right. And the next hazard we can say that that is the increased intensity of, increased intensity of of floods, floods and windstorms also, right, and windstorms. So ये भी एक इसका consequence रहता है, क्योंकि जो भी floods हैं, right, so those act as breakers for the flood water, right, because जितनी vegetation रहेगी ground के ऊपर, उतना water का जो मूवमेंट है वो स्लो रहेगा, राइट, वाटर धीरे धीरे मूव करेगा. अगर वाटर धीरे धीरे मूव करेगा तो फ्लड की इंटेंसिटी, फोर्स फ्लड की कम होगी, राइट, उसकी वेलोसिटी कम हो जाएगी. दैट इज वाई जो फ्लड है इतना डिस्ट्रक्टिव नहीं रहेगा. एंड सेकेंड पॉइंट, अगर फ्लड धीरे धीरे मूव करता है तो परकोलेशन रेट बढ़ जाएगा, राइट. अगर वेजिटेशन होगी, एक तो उनकी रूट्स के थ्रू परकोलेशन ज़्यादा होगी, दूसरा अगर फ्लड का वाटर रुक रुक के चलेगा, धीरे चलेगा, तो परकोलेशन के लिए टाइम ज़्यादा मिलेगा. सो दैट इज़ वाई मोर परकोलेशन, राइट, ऑफ द वाटर इनटू द ग्राउंड, राइट. सो अगर ग्राउंड में परकोलेशन ज़्यादा होगी तो क्या होगा, ग्राउंड वाटर रिचार्ज एडिक्वेटली होता रहेगा. अगर ग्राउंड वाटर एडिक्वेटली रिचार्ज होता रहेगा तो वाटर की क्वालिटी एंड क्वांटिटी दोनों की समस्या नहीं आएगी हमें, राइट. सो दैट इज व्हाई दीज आर द वेरियस, राइट, बेनिफिट्स वी कैन से एनवायरनमेंट को जो मिलते हैं अगर लैंड अच्छी है. तो अगर लैंड डिग्रेडेड है तो फिर ये सब नुकसान होंगे. दीज आर द एनवायरमेंटल हैजर्ड्स वी कैन सी. आई होप दिस पॉइंट इज क्लियर टू यू अबाउट द एनवायरमेंटल हैजर्ड्स, राइट. किसी को कोई डाउट तो नहीं है, मुझे एक बार बता दो प्लीज, राइट. सभी को क्लियर है ये? ओके बेटा, ओके, क्लियर, राइट. So now we are moving on to the next point, right? Not next point. So as far as the next point, that is the fourth point, right? So in the fourth point, there is the loss of biodiversity and ecosystem. ये तो मैंने आपको पहले बता ही दिया है, right? इसलिए इसको हम यहाँ explain नहीं करेंगे. And point number 5, right? That is we can say the loss of employment, right? लॉस ऑफ एम्प्लॉयमेंट. लॉस ऑफ एम्प्लॉयमेंट कैसे होगी, राइट. सो लैंड इज डिग्रेडेड, राइट, लैंड इज डिग्रेडेड, राइट, मीन्स लेस लैंड अंडर कल्टिवेशन, राइट, less land under cultivation and low productivity. Okay, so these are the points, right? And low productivity, right? So बेटा अगर कल्टीवेशन के अंदर लैंड कम है और प्रोडक्टिविटी लो है तो इसका रिजल्ट क्या होगा बेटा? फॉल इन एम्प्लॉयमेंट, राइट? तो एम्प्लॉयमेंट ही नहीं रहेगी इन वजह से, इस वजह से, राइट? फॉल इन एम्प्लॉयमेंट, राइट? सो अगर एम्प्लॉयमेंट में फॉल आएगा बेटा तो उस वजह से क्या होगा बेटा? उस वजह से पॉवर्टी आएगी, राइट? सो इट लीड्स टू पॉवर्टी, right? It leads to poverty, right? So one point is that, right? And दूसरा point क्या होगा बेटा? It leads to migration, right? Migration within the country and out of the country, rural to urban migration also, right? It leads to migration, right? And beta, where there is poverty, right, and the issue of migration, we see the civil unrest, right? We see the civil unrest in those areas, right? So civil unrest will be there, right? And the next thing is better, because of the fall in productivity, right? So there will be increase in food prices, right? Food inflation आएगी, increase in food prices, right? Food prices, that is another consequence we can say, right? And बेटा, इन सभी points की वजह से, जितने भी ये points हैं, right? इन सभी चीजों की वजह से बेटा क्या निकलेगा फर्दर? पॉलिटिकल इंस्टेबिलिटी निकलेगी, राइट? लोगों का गुस्सा रहेगा गवर्नमेंट के खिलाफ, राइट? पॉलिटिकल इंस्टेबिलिटी विल बी देयर, right? Political instability will be there. Okay. So is this point clear that how loss of employment, right, is affected by the, or how employment is affected by the degradation of land, and what are the further consequences of the loss of employment? I think the points are clear to you. If you have any doubt, you can ask, please. Okay. So now I am moving on to the next slide now, right? And the next point is, that is the, we can say, right? uh, I think that was the concept point, sixth point, right? So as far as the point number 6 is concerned, right? Point number 6 is concerned, right? We can say that energy crisis, right? Energy crisis, this is an important point because of increased pressure on fossil energy, right? Fossil fuels energy, right? Fossil fuels we can say, right? क्योंकि जो हम अब वुड यूज करते हैं, जो हम ब्रांचेस ऑफ द ट्रीज यूज करते हैं, राइट? सो वो चीज, वो सब तो मिलेगा नहीं, फिर उसकी तो कमी आ जाएगी, राइट? हमें फ्यूल वुड की कमी आ जाएगी, राइट? तो अगर हमारे पास वुड की कमी होगी, राइट, फॉर द बर्निंग पर्पस, तो देन द बर्डन विल शिफ्ट ऑन द fossil fuels, right? So that is why it may lead to the energy crisis also, right? And the next important point which I see, that is the mineral loss, right? Mineral loss, because these are the important things, right? Mineral loss, how? Because I'm telling you that how, right? Because there is the land degradation, right? Land degradation, right? Land degradation means, right? So forest loss, right? Forest loss or decreased foresters, right? Decreased foresters, right? So if the forests are decreased, right? So there will be the, you can say, as far as the wood is concerned, right? Wood. for a construction purpose, right? And for making various tools and implements, right? Making various tools and implements, right? So that is there, right? Wood for cons. So now what is there, right? So there will be scarcity of wood. If there is scarcity of wood, right? Number one, wood में क्या रहेगा? Supply is less than the demand. So ये situation आ जाएगी, right? So then what will happen, right? To meet the extra demand, right? So we will have to depend on the mineral resources, right? Construction purpose के लिए, tools, implements बनाने के लिए, that is there, right? And the second point is that if there is the scarcity of the wood, then what will be there? Wood will become, right? Wood will become costlier, right? Costlier, वो costlier हो जाएगी. And if the wood becomes costlier, right? Even then, right? People will start using the mineral implements made of the metals, right? Metals. Okay. So that is there, and metals will be used for the construction purpose also. More metals will be used in place of the wood, right? So this way it can lead to the mineral loss also. Okay. So the next thing is, we can say there can be various other consequences also, right? 8th point is that that is the other consequences, right? Other consequences of this you can say land degradation. As far as the other consequences of land degradation is concerned, one important consequence is that is the malnutrition, right? Because the land has been degraded, area under cultivation is less, the production of the food will be low, right? If the production of the food is less, so then there will be the problem of hunger, malnutrition problem will be there, right? So one point is that, right? And the second point is that is the wasted children, right? Wasted children. And due to the wasted children, the future of the country may fall in dark, right? So question on the future of the country. Okay, future of the country. So that is there. Okay. When the when what is the point you have raised? When demand is more than supply. If demand is more than supply, then the wood will be cheaper source, right? So more and more wood will be used, right? And the burden on the mineral sources will be less, right? So that is the point, right? हम कंस्ट्रक्शन पर्पज में कोशिश करेंगे ज़्यादा वुड यूज़ कर लें, टूल्स इम्प्लीमेंट्स बनाने में हम ज़्यादा वुड यूज़ करेंगे, राइट? सो दैट इज देयर. ओके, सो वेस्टेड चिल्ड्रन का पॉइंट है. And the next point, that is we can say that is the cultural crisis, right? Cultural crisis, right? Cultural crisis, because पहली बात जो कल्चर है, कल्चर इज द क्रिएशन ऑफ द एनवायरनमेंट. ओके, आप जिस जगह पे रहते हो, कल्चर क्या है? हमारा वे ऑफ लिविंग है, राइट? हमारा वे ऑफ लिविंग है, हमारा खाना, हमारा पहनना, हमारे त्योहार, राइट? हमारा, यू कैन से एंटायर वे ऑफ लिविंग, दैट इज द कल्चर, राइट? एंड द कल्चर और द वे ऑफ लिविंग, right, is you can say is the product of the environmental conditions, right? जैसी आपकी environmental conditions होंगी, वैसा आपका culture होगा, right? ओके, जो लोग पहाड़ों में रहते हैं उनका वे ऑफ लिविंग डिफरेंट है. जो लोग प्लेन्स में रहते हैं, देयर वे ऑफ लिविंग इज डिफरेंट फ्रॉम दैट, राइट? व्हाई? बिकॉज द कंडीशंस, एनवायरनमेंट, राइट? सो कल्चर इवॉल्व होता है एनवायरनमेंट से. ओके, सो व्हेन द राइट, सो एनवायरनमेंट कंसिस्ट्स ऑफ various things, right? Right, living as well as non-living environment, right? So environment consists of the soil, environment consists of the water, Environment consists of the air, right? And environment consists of various living components like trees, vegetation, right? And animals, right? And other types of life, right? So many things are there, right? So that is so so we can say culture is the product of all these things, right? So if the basic factors will change, the culture will also change. One point is that, right? And the second point is that I have told you that land degradation, right, is one of the reasons behind the forced migration. आपको अपनी प्लेस मजबूरी में छोड़ के कहीं और जाना पड़ेगा, राइट? सो अगर आप अपनी प्लेस को मजबूरी में छोड़ के कहीं और जाओगे तो वहां पर क्या होगा? कल्चरल आइडेंटिटी डिल्यूट होगी। किसकी होगी? आपकी भी डिल्यूट होगी, और जिन लोगों के बीच में आप जाके रहोगे उनकी भी कल्चरल आइडेंटिटी डिल्यूट होगी, राइट? सो हमने नॉर्थ ईस्टर्न स्टेट्स में वी हैव सीन दैट, राइट, वेयर मैनी बांग्लादेशी migrants are there, right? We have seen that there is a continuous problem, right? So there is a resentment among the people, right, that the Bangladeshis, right, who have crossed into India illegally, right? So they are affecting their culture. They are, we can say, diluting their culture, right? So that means it will lead to a cultural crisis as well, right? Cultural crisis as well, right? And the next thing, beta, what is there, right? So its next consequence can be war, war, right? Its next consequence can be the war. Okay, so we can say that a drought and loss of the fertile lands, right, are contributing into the, right, you can say, civil unrest and crisis and war, right, in Sudan and Syria, right? So this is a visible example that how these things lead to war, right? So I hope this point is clear to you. We have discussed the, you can say, the consequences of the land degradation. Food security contributes to climate change. How? Land degradation means loss of vegetation, forest, and denudation of land. It means more moisture loss, right? And it means loss of vegetation, low rainfall, loss of carbon stock, low rainfall. How? Because loss of water through transpiration will be less amount of water in atmosphere. That is why the rainfall may be less of carbon stock, right? Carbon dioxide concentration will increase, more greenhouse effect and global warming. Degraded land releases soil carbon and nitrogen oxide in atmosphere, so it increases the concentration of the greenhouse gases, right? So that is the point there, right? So the next is the, we can say, environmental hazard is there, right? Hazard is there. So that is better soil erosion, destruction of habitat, loss of soil moisture, excessive nutrients runoff into the water bodies, which may cause eutrophication, loss of forests, increased intensities of floods and windstorms, loss of biodiversity and ecosystem, loss of employment, land is degraded, less land under cultivation, and low productivity. It will lead to increase in the food prices and it lead to fall in the employment. Fall in employment causes poverty, migration, and civil unrest. And all these factors lead to the political instability as well, right? And the next point is energy crisis because of increased pressure on the fossil fuels, right? So that is a point here, right? Increased pressure on the fossil fuels, right? So that is a point here. And mineral loss, land degradation, forest loss or decreased forests, wood for construction purpose and for making various tools and implements, right? So what is their supply will be less than the demand. So due to that, the prices will increase, right? Would become costlier and to fill that gap, right? So mineral resources will be substituted for the wood. right? So that is the point there. And other consequences includes malnutrition and waste children, means health consequences. We can say cultural crisis. I have discussed in detail. War, right? I have told you that in Sudan and Syria, right, due to the continuous drought, right, the fertile land is lost, right, and due to the loss of the fertile land, there is the problem of food scarcity, right? Food is not available, right? People are dying of, we can say, hunger, right? And that is one of the underlying causes, right, for war in those countries, right? So in many other areas also, uh, such examples can be noticed. Okay, Vita. So this is the point here. I think clear up to this point. Okay. So now the next point is that, right? So we are discussing now, that is the extent of the effect of land degradation. कहाँ तक land degradation का effect है, effect of land degradation. Okay. So this is again an important topic, subtopic here, right? So effect of extent of land degradation. So as far as the extent of effect of land degradation is concerned, first point is that land degradation is a problem in both developed and developing countries. One is that land degradation is a problem in both developed and developing countries. So that is the point here, right? ये मैंने आपको पहले ही बता दिया है. So this is one of the points, right? So 43% of, right, sorry, 43% of world population live in, right, regions affected by land degradation. Regions affected by land degradation, right? That is there, right? Land degradation, right? So according to, according to a report, according to a report, right, by 2050, right, 2050, that about 4 billion people, right, will be living in dry lands, right, will be living in dry lands, right? 4 billion people will be living in dry lands. Okay, so that is there, right? So now the point is that what is the meaning of this dry land? अब हमने ये देखना है कि हम dry land किसको बोलते हैं, right? So this is again important here, right? So UNO के according, right, dry land क्या है, right? So first thing is that dry land is, you can say, right, recognized on the basis of aridity ratio, right? Aridity ratio. So ये aridity ratio के ऊपर बेस करती है, right? So what is the aridity ratio now? You should know about this first of all, right? So aridity ratio क्या होती है? Aridity ratio is equal to, right, long term average of precipitation of a place, right? First point is that long term average of precipitation, right? Precipitation, and further divided by, right, divided by long term average of right? Long-term average of climate water demand, right? Climate water demand. So this is the another thing, right? So beta ये जो climate water demand है, right? This is known as the potential evapotranspiration, right? इसको हम potential evapotranspiration भी कहते हैं, right? This is known as the potential evapotranspiration. Okay, so now beta for the sake of convenience, right, decimal को हटाने के लिए आप इसको 100 से मल्टीप्लाई कर सकते हैं. So this is the aridity ratio, right? So now the point is that what is the standard aridity ratio to determine whether a land is dry land or not, right? So what is the, right, what is the standard aridity ratio, right, aridity ratio to determine whether a land is a dry land or not, right? So क्या है? So beta according to the UNO, right, according to the UNO, the standard aridity ratio to determine whether a land is dry land or not, right? So according to that, the aridity ratio, right, should be means, right? So there is a point of, we can say, right, that is equal to 0.65, right, or 65% we can say it, right? So if the 65%, right, so please bear this in mind that if the aridity ratio is 65% or below, that is treated as a dry land, right? And if the aridity ratio is above 65%, then it is not treated as dry land according to the UN. So is the point clear, beta, that what is the aridity ratio? Because this is an important point, right? Aridity ratio. Okay, so this helps in determining whether a piece of land is dry land or not. Okay, so please remember it, right? So aridity ratio we have already decided, right? So now the point is that, right? So we are talking about the extent of effect of degradation, right? The third point in this or here, I will like to mention that is Saharan Africa, SARAHAN, right? Saharan, sorry, SARA, Saharan Africa, and we can say Middle East, and Middle East are areas that are highly vulnerable to, are areas that are highly vulnerable to, food insecurity, and water insecurity, right? Water insecurity, right? क्योंकि वहाँ ड्राइनेस है, वो ड्राई लैंड से, राइट, एरिड रीजन से, सो वहाँ पर फूड एंड वाटर इनसिक्योरिटी दोनों की प्रॉब्लम है, प्रिवेल कर रही है. सो दैट इज एन इम्पॉर्टेंट पॉइंट, राइट? Okay, so this problem is very much acute, and we can say the problem of land degradation is very much acute in the following areas, right? So problem of land degradation is very much acute, sorry, acute in which areas it is very much acute, right? So this problem is, we can say, acute in Okay, one it is the sub-Saharan Africa. The problem is acute, right? So second thing is the problem is acute, that is the Asia, right? And the third point where it is acute, that is the, we can say, South America, right? South America में ये problem है. And the fourth point where it is acute, that is the Central America, right? So these are the areas where the problem of land degradation is very much acute, right? Is very much acute. Okay. And according to an estimator, land degradation and climate change, fifth point, right? According to an estimate, right? Land degradation and climate change, okay, and climate change will have displaced or may displace, we can say it, right? May displace, right? Between 50 million and 700 and between 50 million and 700 million people by 2050. So that means the problem of land degradation is very severe problem, right? Very severe problem. So beta, this is the extent of effect of land degradation. I hope this is clear to you. Please allow me to move further, right? Allow me to move further. Okay. So now the next thing is that, which is again important, that is, we can say the causes of land degradation. So why the land degradation occurs, right? Causes of land degradation, right? So as far as the causes of land degradation is concerned, right? So first of all, right, so there are some direct causes of land degradation. So I'm writing here that among the direct causes of land degradation are, right, of land degradation are. What are the direct causes of land degradation, right? So what are those, right? So number one, I can say that is the conversion of, right, conversion of natural, right, vegetation into crop and, right, natural vegetation or natural forests into croplands, crop and grazing lands, chalo, into crop and grazing lands, right? So this is one reason, right? Because of the pressure of the population. One is that point, right? And second is, we can say that unsustainable land management practices, unsustainable land management practices, unsustainable land management practices. So what are those unsustainable land management practices, right? Or one, we can say that is the over-tilling of the land, right? So over-tilling of the land, one is that point, right? Over-tilling. And the second point here, we can say that is the over-drying of groundwater, right? Over-drying of groundwater. That is another reason, right? Another cause, right? And the next thing is that we can say monoculture in एग्रीकल्चर, राइट? सो मोनोकल्चर है, राइट? सो हम एक ही फसल बीज रहे हैं, जिस वजह से क्या है कि पर्टिकुलर न्यूट्रिएंट्स की कमी हो रही है, न्यूट्रिएंट इम्बैलेंस हो रहा है, और उसकी वजह से सॉइल का जो फर्टिलिटी है, जो प्रोडक्टिविटी है, that is falling, we can say. That is also important point here, right? So now the third cause or the third reason behind this, we can say, right, behind this land degradation, right, that is the climate change, right, climate change, right? So climate change is affecting the vegetation, it is affecting the you can see rainfall, pattern of the rainfall, it is bringing floods, right, it is causing droughts also, right, and it is affecting the vegetation also. So that is the point there, right? So next is a conversion of land, conversion of land to urbanization. पहली बात ये है, right? To urbanization, infrastructure, right? To infrastructure, we can say, right? Industrialization, right? Industrialization and mining, right? So बहुत सारी जमीन है जो हम इन चीजों के लिए यूज करने लगे हैं. So that is why it is causing the degradation of the land, right? And okay, and the next point is that, right? So we can see the now these are the apparent causes, right? So let me take it otherwise. These are the apparent causes, right? Now there are some underlying causes behind all this, right? There are some underlying causes behind all this. ऐसा सब क्यों हो रहा है, right? Behind all this, right? So मैंने आपको बोला है कि एक तो कन्वर्सन हो रही है नेचुरल वेजिटेशन की क्रॉप्स में, ग्रेजिंग लैंड्स में, ऐसा क्यों, राइट? दूसरी चीज है अनसस्टेनेबल लैंड मैनेजमेंट प्रैक्टिसेस, ओवर टिलिंग कर रहे हैं, ग्राउंड वाटर को का ओवरड्राफ्ट हो रहा है, ऐसा क्यों? तीसरा है कन्वर्जन ऑफ लैंड टू अर्बनाइजेशन, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन एंड माइनिंग, है ना, ये सब हो रहा है, ऐसा क्यों, राइट? सो अब हम इसके ऊपर थोड़ा सा देखेंगे, राइट? सो one point, so which we cannot deny, right? So that is, we can say the increasing population. Chalo, that is one point, okay? Increasing population, right? So beyond increasing population, is there any other reason also? Yes, there are other reasons also, right? So what is the other reason, right? So that is, we can say the, right, race for improved material standards of life, right? Race for improved material standards of life, right? राइट, सो हम चाहते हैं हमारे पास कार हो, हर पर्सन के पास कार हो, राइट? उसके लिए हमें रोड्स वाइडन करनी पड़ती हैं, राइट? तो है ना, तो माइनिंग ज़्यादा करनी पड़ेगी बिकॉज वी नीड मोर मिनरल्स, राइट? सो उससे एनवायरनमेंट अफेक्ट होगा, क्लाइमेट चेंज होगा, क्लाइमेट चेंज फर्दर लैंड डिग्रेडेशन करेगा. So many reasons are there, right? So this is another reason, right? Race for improved material standards of life, right? And the next important point, which I think is there, right? Yes, the next important point which I think is there, that is beta divorce, right? Divorce between the, right, ownership of land, right? Divorce between the ownership of land, right, and tenancy, right? Ownership of land and tenancy, right? So इसमें बेटा क्या है, you can say कि land is held by zamindars, right, and it is given for cultivation to the tenants, right? Land is held by zamindars at some places, not everywhere, right? By zamindars, and it is given for cultivation, right? Cultivation on rental basis or on crop share basis, right? Cultivation to the tenants, right? To tenants, we can say, right? To tenants, right? So now The point is there, beta, right? So when the tenant is paying the rent for the land, right? So the tenant, right, aims at over exploitation of the land so as to earn the maximum profit, right? So what will happen? Tenant aims at over exploitation of the land, okay, over exploitation of the land to earn maximum profits, right? To earn maximum profits, okay. So that is there, right? And the tenant, right, pays no attention to, the tenant pays, right, pays no attention to, no attention to maintain or improve the fertility of the soil, right? Fertility of soil. So that is also one of the reasons. क्योंकि मैंने आपको रेंट देना है, that is why मैं तो maximum यूज करूंगा आपकी जमीन को, है ना? So this is also one of the reasons which can be said an important reason, right? So the next point I can say, that is the increasing per capita demand for, increasing, right, per capita demand for, demand for proteins and nutrients, right? Proteins and nutrients. So that is why, right, the burden or the pressure on land is increasing, we can say, right? Protein, nutrients, then the next we can say that is the demand for fiber, right? And demand for, you can say, the bioenergy, right? Demand for the bioenergy is increasing, right? So here we will discuss something, right? So I hope you know that, right, the government of India has a target of, right, government of India has a target of 20% ethanol blending into petrol by the year 2025, right? पहले ये 2030 तक का था, अब इन्होंने एडवांस कर दिया है, right? The government of India has target of 20%, right, ethanol blending, right, into petrol, right? कि पेट्रोल में हमने 20% ethanol blending करनी है by 2025, right? By 2025, please इसको याद रखना, right? By 2025, right? So now beta, now the point is that, right, to meet this target, right, so India would require, right, to meet this target, to meet this target, okay, India would require, right, would require, we can say 10 billion, 10 billion means 1000 crore, right, liters of ethanol, liters of ethanol by 2023. इसके लिए हमें 2023 तक इतना ethanol चाहिए, right? Ethanol, right? And beta, you know that to produce, right, 1 liter of ethanol, right, you can say 2860 liters of water is required, liters of water is required. So हमें इतना पानी चाहिए, right? So बेटा फिर 20% blending के टारगेट को अचीव करने के लिए the requirement of water would be 28600 billion liters of water would be required, right? 00 billion liters of water would be required, right? So then what is there? Loss of water. वाटर कहाँ से लेके आएंगे? ग्राउंड से लेंगे, या अगर हम रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग नहीं करेंगे तो इट मीन्स स्केर्सिटी ऑफ वाटर बनेगी, राइट? सो इट मीन्स if we are consuming that much water to meet this target of 20% ethanol blending, so that means loss of water means aridity, dryness, sukhapan, right? So that problem will increase further. Okay, so beta, this is right. 10 billion liters ethanol produce करना है हमने E20 टारगेट को अचीव करने के लिए, एथेनॉल 20 टारगेट को अचीव करने के लिए, और 1 लीटर एथेनॉल प्रोड्यूस करने के लिए हमें 2860 लीटर पानी चाहिए, और 10 बिलियन के लिए हमें 28600 बिलियन लीटर्स ऑफ वाटर चाहिए, राइट? सो इसकी प्रोडक्शन के लिए, सो दैट मीन्स it would lead to aridity further, right? It would lead to aridity further. So is the point clear now, right? So now I am going further, right? So as far as the further point is concerned, in this point I am taking some other reasons of land degradation, right? Other reasons of land degradation include, right? So what are the other reasons of land degradation? So now we are going to discuss that, right? So पहले हमने कुछ main reasons discuss किए हैं. Some other reasons are also there, right, behind this, right? As far as the other reasons are concerned, first reason is, we can say, that is the market deregulation since 1989, right? So market deregulation हुआ है, right, since 1980s, better है इसको लिखना, since 1980s, right? So बेटा जब market deregulation होता है तो number one, right, number one क्या होता है कि producers produce what they like, right? What is required in the market, right? What is required in the market. One point is that, right? And second thing क्या होता है कि sometimes it leads to the overproduction, right? It leads to the overproduction, right? And third point क्या होता है कि there is no centralized comprehensive plan, right? Right? There is no centralized, right? Centralized comprehensive model, right? Comprehensive model to plan the, right? To plan the area under various crops, to maintain balance, right? To maintain balance in terms of nutrients in soil, right? And water balance, right? So हमारे पास ये नहीं है. So this is one of the reasons of the problem, right? So that is there, right? And the next thing is that, right? So market deregulation is one more pointer, right? So it has caused the destruction of the sustainable land management practice, right? It has caused destruction of sustainable land management practices, right? Land management practices, right? So ऐसा भी हुआ है, right? So बेटा हमारे टाइम में, right, जब हम छोटे थे, right, तब क्या होता था, right, when we were you can say of age of 15 years or 10 years or so, right? So beta at that time क्या होता था, I'm just going to tell you. At that time ये होता था बेटा कि suppose this is my agricultural land, right? मैं करता क्या था बेटा, मैं इस agricultural land को मैंने suppose 2 parts में मैंने divide कर लिया, right बेटा? 2 parts में मैंने divide कर लिया, right? So let's suppose बेटा या तो मैं ऐसा करता था, है ना, कि मैं जो खरीफ की कल्टीवेशन में इस पार्ट पे कर लेता था, राइट, एंड राबी क्रॉप की कल्टीवेशन में इस क्रॉप पे कर लेता था, राइट। सो बेटा जब ये क्रॉप ड्यूरिंग द राबी सीजन फ्री रहती थी ये लैंड, तब ये लैंड अपनी फर्टिलिटी को रीगेन कर लेती थी, राइट। और जब खरीफ सीजन में ये लैंड फ्री रहती थी तो तब ये अपनी फर्टिलिटी को रीगेन कर लेती थी, राइट। या तो ऐसा करते थे लोग, या फिर लोग ऐसा करते थे कि एक सीजन में, राइट, मतलब यू कैन से एक पूरा साल इस पीस के ऊपर खेती की, अगला पूरा साल इसके ऊपर, एक साल में ये रीगेन कर लेती थी अपनी फर्टिलिटी, दूसरे साल में ये रीगेन कर लेती थी अपनी फर्टिलिटी। दैट इज द थिंग, है ना। एंड अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट एट दैट टाइम मोनोकल्चर इतना पॉपुलर नहीं था, राइट। दैट टाइम लोग मतलब अदर मतलब वेरियस क्रॉप्स की कल्टीवेशन करते थे, राइट। ओके, सो जिसमें वी कैन से, राइट, लिग्यूम क्रॉप्स भी की कल्टीवेशन भी होती थी, उससे नाइट्रोजन फिक्सेशन होती है, राइट। सो दैट इज वाई उनकी सॉइल हेल्दी रहती थी, राइट। सो नाउ आज के ज़माने में क्या क्या है, ड्यू टू द प्रेशर ऑफ, राइट। सो आज के ज़माने में बेटा क्या है कि मार्केट डीरेगुलेशन होने की वजह से हमारी अप्रोच कमर्शियलाइज बन गई। अप्रोच कमर्शियलाइज बनने की वजह से जो सस्टेनेबल लैंड मैनेजमेंट प्रैक्टिसेस हैं, राइट, उनकी डिस्ट्रक्शन हुई है। दैट इज एन इम्पॉर्टेंट पॉइंट विच शुड बी नोटेड हेयर, right, and and the next important point is that the global governing mechanisms are not that much effective, right। So बहुत सारा कुछ बनाया, right, global governing, right, we can say right, so regulators or mechanisms are not that much effective, right, mechanisms are not effective, right, are not effective, right, नॉट इफेक्टिव। क्योंकि बेटा ऐसा होता है कि आज के ज़माने में, राइट, सभी की ये कोशिश होती है कि हम किसी के ऊपर लीस्ट डिपेंडेंट हों। अगर मैं किसी के ऊपर लीस्ट डिपेंडेंट रहूँगा तो मुझे हर चीज़ की प्रोडक्शन करनी पड़ेगी, राइट। अगर मैं हर चीज़ की प्रोडक्शन के लिए जाऊँगा तो मेरी लैंड उसको सूट करती है या नहीं करती, तो भी मैं उसकी प्रोडक्शन करूँगा। तो इट मीन्स क्या है बेटा, अंडर यूटिलाइजेशन ऑफ द लैंड, right, lack of optimum utilization of the land and comparatively more opportunity cost, right। So जब आप लैंड की ऑप्टिमम यूटिलाइजेशन नहीं करोगे, राइट, सो प्रोडक्शन विल बी लेस देन द पोटेंशियल प्रोडक्शन। जितनी प्रोडक्शन हो सकती थी ऑप्टिमम यूटिलाइजेशन करके, उससे कम प्रोडक्शन हो रही है, राइट। सो बेटा and beta, if the production is lesser, right, yes beta, if the production is lesser, right, so then beta that means so more land would be brought under the cultivation to meet the needs, right, to fulfill the needs, right। And beta if more lands would be brought into under the cultivation, that will amount to deforestation, right, deforestation, and beta deforestation would further lead to the you can say land degradation, right। So I think this point is clear to you again, right। So here you can mention the theory of comparative advantage by Ricardo, theory of comparative advantage, right, comparative advantage by David Ricardo, right, by Ricardo, sorry, बाय रिकार्डो, राइट। सो ये इकोनॉमिक्स की बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट थ्योरी है, राइट। ये हम इसलिए यूज़ कर सकते हैं, ताकि करते हैं सो दैट किसी चीज़ को प्रोड्यूस करने की अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट कम से कम हो, राइट। मीन्स अगर पंजाब की लैंड इज बेस्ट सूटेड फॉर वीट, सो in Punjab, wheat should be cultivated and other crops should be cultivated in the, we can say, other areas, right। सो मस्टर्ड के लिए अगर हमारी क्रॉप इतनी सूट नहीं करती तो हमें मस्टर्ड की कल्टीवेशन नहीं करनी चाहिए, हमें इंस्टेड वीट की कल्टीवेशन करनी चाहिए, राइट। मस्टर्ड के लिए हम डिपेंड करें मध्य प्रदेश के ऊपर, राजस्थान के ऊपर एंड अदर स्टेट्स के ऊपर। सो ये कंपैरेटिव एडवांटेज की थ्योरी है, कभी हम इसको बाद में डिटेल में हम करेंगे, राइट। सो एंड बेटा एक नेक्स्ट पॉइंट आता है कि लैक ऑफ अवेयरनेस अमंग पीपल, राइट, लैक ऑफ अवेयरनेस अमंग पीपल। लोगों के अंदर भी अवेयरनेस नहीं है कि लैंड डिग्रेड हो रही है, लैंड की क्वालिटी ख़राब हो रही है, उसके बाद फिर हम सफ़र करेंगे, क्या क्या इसके कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस हो सकते हैं। सो दैट इज़ वाई पीपल आर आल्सो नॉट गिविंग दैट मच अटेंशन टुवर्ड्स दिस, राइट। लाइक इसकी एक बहुत सुंदर एग्जांपल है कि पंजाब के अंदर पैडी कल्टीवेशन है जो, उसकी वजह से वाटर लॉस हो रहा है, राइट, लैंड्स डिग्रेड हो रही हैं, केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर इतना यूज़ करते हैं हम, that is also right causing the toxicity in the soil, means land, right, and land degradation हो रही है उसकी वजह से, right. So that is why awareness is an important factor, right. And the next thing is that that is, we can say, the fragmented, right, fragmented decision making, right, fragmented decision making, we can say, in various countries, right, in various countries, right. Like बेटा लैंड डिग्रेडेशन के इशू के लिए जो डिसीजन मेकिंग है, राइट, सो इससे रिलेटेड जो बहुत सारी मिनिस्ट्रीज के अंडर, बहुत सारे डिपार्टमेंट्स के अंडर फॉल करता है, राइट, एग्रीकल्चर कहीं फॉल करती है, राइट, यू कैन से जो अपना है इसका इरिगेशन किसी दूसरे डिपार्टमेंट के अंडर फॉल करता है, माइनिंग किसी और डिपार्टमेंट के अंडर फॉल करती है। सो बेटा दैट इज वाई डिसीजन मेकिंग की सिंगल कंपोजिट अप्रोच नहीं है, डिसीजन मेकिंग की फ्रेगमेंटेड अप्रोच है। दैट इज वाई हमारे डिसीजंस इफेक्टिव नहीं होते और उनकी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन में दिक्कत आती है। These are the reasons, right? So I hope it is clear up to this point, right? So tomorrow the remaining part of this lecture I will cover, right? So if you have any doubt up to this point, please tell me. Otherwise, please give your feedback, okay, at the Telegram or WhatsApp, okay? So that's important. Yes, beta, following land, if it is for long time without the vegetation cover, that is important thing, right? Without the vegetation cover. Okay. Okay, beta. So can I take leave now?
Sure, sir.
Okay, right, beta, right. So anything else you want to ask, you can tell me. Okay. So please give your feedback on WhatsApp or Telegram channel. Okay. So that will be helpful for others also, right? If you like the lecture. Okay, take care.